Fox News alert right now. President Trump is in Germany for the G20. He's about to meet with German Chancellor Angela Merkel a day ahead of his high-stakes showdown with Russian President Vladimir Putin. This is the president slamming his predecessor for not doing enough about Russia's meddling in our election. This is Outnumbered. I'm Meghan McCain. Here today, co-host of After the Bell, Melissa Francis. Also from FBN, the host of The Intelligence Report, Trish Regan, Fox News legal analyst and host of Justice with Judge Janine Pirro. And today's hashtag, one lucky guy. We welcome back TV's Superman and host of Masters of Illusion on the CW, Dean Cain. And Dean, you are outnumbered.
And I'm happy to be outnumbered. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much for coming back.
Great. I'll always come back to this couch. It's a happy place to be.
Do you get sick of people asking you where your cape is?
No.
No? Never?
No,
okay.
Although every time I get on an airplane, it is a little monotonous. Why are you on a plane? But I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. I'll embrace it forever.
That is cheap.
Exactly. We'll talk about this later, Judge.
Okay.
All right. Let's get started. President Trump in Poland earlier lashing out, blaming former President Obama for not doing enough about the Russian hacking. Watch.
Why did he do nothing about it? He was told it was Russia by the CIA, as I understand it. It was well reported. And he did nothing about it. They say he choked. Well, I don't think he choked. I think what happened is he thought Hillary Clinton was going to win the election, and he said, let's not do anything about it.
Kristen Fisher joins us live from Warsaw, Poland. Kristen.
Hey, ladies. Well, about 15,000 people were cheering President Trump on in that speech earlier today, and he gave them a lot of love right back. He said he praised Poland for sending their own troops to fight alongside U.S. troops in both Iraq and Afghanistan. He also praised Poland for being one of the few countries to keep its commitment to spend 2% of its GDP on defense. So those are the good things. But now President Trump is heading into some far less friendly territory. He's about to hold that big meeting with German Chancellor Angela Merkel, the host of the G20 summit. And who can forget that awkward handshake in the Oval Office? Then there was Chancellor Merkel's bold declaration that Germany can no longer rely on the U.S. The two clearly differ on several key issues: immigration, Germany's trade surplus with the U.S., and the U.S. pulling out of the Paris Climate Accord. But in the speech that President Trump just delivered here in Poland, he said something that Chancellor Merkel is going to like, something that he noticeably left out from his speech at the NATO summit about a month ago. And here it is.
To those who would criticize our tough stance, I would point out that the United States has demonstrated, not merely with words, but with its actions, that we stand firmly behind Article 5, the mutual defense commitment.
Now, that is exactly what our NATO allies want to hear, but it's the exact opposite of what Russia wants. And one day before his first face-to-face meeting with President Putin, President Trump said this about Russian meddling in the U.S. election.
I think it was Russia, and I think it could have been other people in other countries. Could have been a lot of people interfered. I said it very simply. I think it could very well have been Russia, but I think it could well have been other countries, and I won't be specific.
Now, we still don't know if President Trump will even bring up Russian meddling in the U.S. election when he sits down with President Putin tomorrow. The only thing that we know for sure that he will talk about is Syria. It's an area that the White House is really hoping to find at least some common ground on. Now, I believe that President Trump has just arrived at his hotel in Germany. And in case you're wondering, ladies, why I am sitting in this lovely empty ballroom, it's because this is, or was, the press filing center here in Poland. Most of the press, in fact, all of the press has already left. They're on a charter plane to Germany. Our chief White House correspondent, John Roberts, isn't board, so I'm providing some backup here. But literally, everybody has left, even Polish TV. It's kind of sad. Ladies, lucky guy, back to you.
All right. Thank you so much for that. I'm sure you'll be with friends soon. I want to tell everybody at home who's watching what you're seeing there on the side of the screen. And as Kristen said, that is the president right there in that car arriving at the Hotel Atlantic Kempinski in Hamburg, Germany. He is arriving for this one-on-one meeting, a restricted meeting with German Chancellor Angela Merkel. Then after that, they are going to have a broader meeting and include other people. But lots of folks are wondering what is going to go on and what they're going to say to each other behind these closed doors here. Let me bring in the rest of the couch a little bit here. Megan, what do you think? What do you think about they've had a tense and testy relationship so far?
So I went to Vegas about a month ago, and when I was gambling at the blackjack table, I was sitting next to some Germans. And of course I brought up Angela Merkel and her meeting with President Trump, and to say that they were not happy about it, not impressed. These specific people were very offended. She went on to say that we can no longer rely on the United States or Europe as a steady partner. To say that it was a cool and testy meeting is putting it mildly. I was very impressed with his speech this morning in Poland, but they're right. He's going into sort of uncharted territory right now, and it'll be very interesting to see if there's any way to sort of you know, come back and maybe possibly get our alignment back on track.
Well, he disagrees with the policies that she's taken. I mean, he disagrees with the open border approach that she's taken and what has happened to her country in response. Judge?
Well, they have some fundamental differences, and I'm sure.
By the way, they're just walking in right there on screen. I don't mean to interrupt you, but I want to point people to what we're looking at here. This is the arrival, and we just saw them walk through the door. Go ahead, Judge.
There are fundamental differences that the president is not going to change on. He made a statement just before he arrived in Germany that the U.S. has made some of the worst trade deals in history. So that's kind of putting a stake in the ground, saying, you know what, I'm not spinning off of that one, folks. She is, I'm sure, trying to embarrass him with respect to the Paris Climate Accord and our not being a part of it anymore. She's put it right at the top of her agenda. And then you've got immigration, where the president feels very strongly about limiting immigration, and she feels very differently. So I can't imagine that they're going to make nice with each other.
She's also the last global leader during a time of progressive liberals that sort of took the wave over globally that now has been replaced with populism, and she really is the last figure, and I think is standing strong on her politics, although it should be noted that she is up for re-election and it's not polling-wise going terribly well at the moment.
So she's clinging to that platform, right? But the problem is it's not working. It's absolutely not working in Germany. You think of, and I think it's tough for women especially, that she's brought in over 1 million migrants from the Middle East, and they now are in a situation where, do you believe the swimming pools in Germany have to post posters that show that you, with an X, through a man grabbing a woman's
rear end.
Backside. Yes, thank you, Megan. And to me, that is so, you know, beyond that, what Germans
past that, Germany ran out of pepper spray because there were so many sexual assaults happening during the streets, which I think led to a warning to the rest of Europe and also the United States. So although they do have a testy meeting initially, I don't see either of these two figures hedging on their beliefs or policies.
Yeah, let me bring Dean in for a second here. I mean, so the last time they talked about the last time he gave a speech, and he didn't, you know, he was dismissive of NATO. He didn't affirm Article 5. He did this time. What's changed in between is that his reprimand seems to have worked. I mean, the nations that weren't opening their wallets did. What do you think?
Well, I think he's a good negotiator. I mean, that's the whole point. I think it's going to be a testy meeting, but I think it'll be sweeter than the last one they had. I was just recently in Germany, and I was speaking to a number of people there, and not in Vegas at the blackjack table, but I was in Munich and the surrounding areas, and I was speaking to some immigrants who came there legally a long time ago, and they were not very happy with the open borders policy at all. So
in what way? I mean, because they were immigrants themselves.
No,
right?
they came in legally through a whole situation where they wanted to come in and be part of Germany and embrace the culture and assimilate. And they felt like these people who were coming in now didn't want to work. This is from the people I spoke to, and they were very unhappy with those policies. And this guy was a very clear immigrant. I mean, there's no question.
You know, there are reports right now that there are 1 million African migrants en route to Europe, according to a UK envoy, and Italy is now calling for mass deportations. So, I mean, they are being overrun. There is no law and order. I mean, you have to actually put up a sign that you're not supposed to sexually, harass someone, assault,
right.
Or touch their bottom.
Horrible.
I mean, it's a mess over there. So Angela Merkel, she can stick to what she believes is appropriate. I think she's going to have a lot of trouble with the re-election.
I agree with you.
So we obviously want to move on to President Trump meeting with Vladimir Putin tomorrow. Everybody get their popcorn and Jack Daniels. I will be, doesn't matter what I'm doing, I'm going to be watching this.
That's quite a combination.
Yeah.
Is that
That's my personal combination, preferably. But we have to talk about the fact that today, in his speech in Poland, he was very hard talking about Syria, talking about the Ukraine, hitting Russia much harder than I think any of us expected. What do you think going forward with this meeting tomorrow, Dean?
Well, I think, first of all, everyone's going to look for optics. They're going to, oh my gosh, are they going to be sitting together? How are they looking? Do they look cozy? All that ridiculousness. When the reality is, they're going to be playing, high stakes poker. They're going to be trying to work things out. I don't think he's going to bring up the meddling in the election. Look, of course Russia was meddling in our election. They've been trying to do that for decades. We've done it plenty in other elections. There's no big shocker there. Obviously, the collusion thing has gone poof, as well it should have. But I think those guys are going to have a game of high stakes poker, and I think it's all right.
You've got Vladimir Putin. I mean, this guy is KGB. I mean, he knows how to assess someone. And what I was reading was that he actually brought a Labrador to meet with Angela Merkel because she's afraid of dogs.
I thought it was a reporter. I heard that story about a reporter, that he did it to a reporter.
Yeah, well,
you think it was Angela Merkel? She doesn't look like she's afraid of dogs.
I don't discount that at all. I think he would do anything. Your dad said it well. He looked into his eyes and he saw KGB.
And Bush said he saw a soul.
Yeah, I have to disagree with that. I'm on your dad's side on that one too. And I think that Trump's ready for him. I think it's going to be interesting.
But you would think there would be some opportunities here where we could work with Russia in terms of dealing with the threat that's coming from ISIS. I mean, we should want to work with them. They should want to work with us. I think the challenge is, on the one hand, you get that, but then you get NATO as an issue. You've got Syria as an issue. And to your point, I mean, he's a tough guy. Vladimir Putin is going to be a tough guy, but I think so is Donald Trump. It'll be an interesting meeting.
The problem with that idea, though, of working together against ISIS is that Russia's big concern and Putin's big interest is what happens in the area and who controls it in the vast oil reserves once ISIS is gone. And that's where everybody comes to loggerheads, because you have the second round of who controls in the vacuum. They obviously want to keep their air base and they want to keep their base in Syria. I don't know that they necessarily, need Assad there, but he's been their puppet and their stronghold. And I think the reason why, obviously, we've seen this conflict is what happens after you force ISIS out.
And that's one of the problems here. We haven't thought that through enough. In other words, if Assad goes, do you run into a situation just like we got into in Iraq, where once Saddam Hussein was out, we had no real plan in place.
Yeah, but Assad is not going to go anywhere while Putin is aiding and abetting and bombing hospitals in Aleppo. And the idea that we are somehow going to find middle ground on that is a complete and total fantasy, but we have to move on. President Trump pledging to act on North Korea, warning the country could face severe consequences for its weapons program. This as North Koreans gather in the capital to celebrate their latest missile launch. What are America's best options moving forward? And the newest addition to Special Counsel Robert Mueller's investigation into Russia, a former top lieutenant to a prominent Trump critic. Does this raise more concerns of bias? And can this probe be trusted? We'll be right back.
We're going to show you some live pictures right now of President Trump and German Chancellor Angela Merkel. They were meeting just moments ago. Let's see what happens here. All right, they went into their private meeting. We're told that they entered the White Room with and walked in front of the G20 background. They seemed very casual with one another, is the report that we're getting. They were talking about President Trump's arrival, and they talked during the quick spray there. Most notably, they just shook hands, looked directly at each other. All right, here they are right now. This was moments ago. Pretty much what we just described. There it is.
It's a little different.
See, believe me, I told you, and there it was. Proof positive. All right.
But it is different than their handshake from the White House, which was quite awkward.
That's true.
Steady and firm.
There you go. All right.
The handshakes are such a thing. I know. They're their own. It's going to be memes of handshakes.
They need the body language experts to tell us, what does that mean? Did they look at it straight in the eye? Were they smiling? Was
she rolling her eyes?
Have a Labrador in the back?
All right. All right. In the meantime, President Trump ahead of the G20 summit with a stern warning for North Korea, just days after the rogue nuclear state launched a test missile that experts say could reach Alaska. Watch.
As far as North Korea is concerned, I don't know. We'll see what happens. I don't like to talk about what I have planned, but I have some pretty severe things that we're thinking about. It's a shame that they're behaving this way, but they are behaving in a very, very dangerous manner. and something will have to be done about it.
So those comments coming just one day after U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations Nikki Haley issued a similar warning during an emergency meeting of the Security Council.
The United States is prepared to use the full range of our capabilities to defend ourselves and our allies. One of our capabilities lies with our considerable military forces. We will use them if we must, but we prefer not to have to go in that direction.
And today, more provocations as North Koreans gathered for a rally in the nation's capital to celebrate the missile test. The country told its citizens that the test was a success and they should be proud. All right. I thought we had a soundbite there. My mistake.
They gathered.
Yeah, they gathered.
They gathered. You will all meet here now. There, and you will be proud. That's interesting. That's interesting and stuff, and it's very provocative. But that's all they ever do.
He also said it was a gift for the American bastards on the 4th of July. His rhetoric is amping up, and I think we have seen that we are about to reach some kind of come to Jesus with these people. In the past 3 presidents, Clinton, Bush, Obama, have all tried to reset with sanctions. None of it has been effective whatsoever. And now we are reaching a point that we are going to have to make some really tough choices in regards to what happens going forward.
So the biggest problem, of course, is that, look, this guy is focused on us. He's got this ICBM that's, with a nuclear warhead that's going to hit us. And General Kelly told me this. He said there's no question that before the first term of President Trump is up, they will have the ability to do that. So then the question is, what do? Okay, if we become aggressive preemptively, they then hit Seoul, 10 million people, and we have to make that assessment. And it is, I don't think any kind of economic sanctions, I don't think any of that matters because Kim Jong-un could care less about his people.
But have we done enough? I'm just going to walk it back for a second because this is very scary. You're right. You're talking about so many millions of people in Seoul or potentially people here, right? Alaska. Sure. We know he can hit that. So it's us or them. But do we have to get there? I look at the economic sanctions. I don't think they've still done enough. I think we can do more with China. We can put more pressure on China. We just sanctioned a Chinese bank last week. More of that.
But
you're right. We may eventually
China
get there.
has the ability to stop this wackadoo? I mean, this guy is bringing together tens of thousands of people.
I think they could shut down their economy. I think
they could shut it off.
He doesn't care if his people
not motivated.
Starve.
And what about he's a complete and total absolute maniac, spoiled fat kid who makes Assad look like a normal person.
Just say what you mean.
I completely agree that we're dealing with a completely irrational
Who doesn't
maniac.
care about his people.
That being said, if we did have the capacity, I had a lot of hope after Trump met with President Xi in Mar-a-Lago eating chocolate cake. I thought we were actually going to make some progress with this. It doesn't seem, according to President Trump's tweets, that we have. I mean, you're Miss Money here on the couch. Do you think it's still possible?
I just don't think China's motivated to do the right thing. That if they were and they did and they really clamped down, that would make a difference. But it doesn't seem like from their actions, like you said, they're willing to do that. And it's a scary idea that we've gotten to the point that there has to be a use of force. We're not there yet, but it seems like we're moving in that direction awfully rapidly.
Pushed China as hard as we need to push them. I mean, maybe we should do more on that front. Look, I hope it doesn't come to what you're talking about. It may very well indeed. There's one other option here that we haven't talked about, and I know you're not supposed to go out or go in and take out a leader because of international rules, decorum, et cetera, that we have. But if there is a way to get in and get rid of this crazy fat kid, as you said, Megan, then wouldn't that do a lot in terms of saving a lot of lives here?
I think that it is always important to remember when everyone gets scared, and I certainly do, on the aggression of North Korea, that General Mattis and McMaster are truly this generation's General Pattons. They are the best of the best of the best and the smartest, and I have complete and full faith that they know what they're doing in this scenario.
Well, on that word. Democrats reportedly now believe running against Donald Trump just isn't enough. They say they've actually got a message for voters now. What it is and if it's too little too late. And Republicans trying to turn the tables on Democrats, releasing a new ad showing Democrats admitting Obamacare is flawed and asking where their plan to fix it is. Will that strategy work?
Would it be smart for Democrats to offer their own alternatives, their own fixes to Obamacare now and try to bring Republicans on board?
That's a very good point.
With Congress now on recess, Republicans are trying to turn the tables on Democrats with a new attack ad. It shows Democrats admitting Obamacare is flawed, but appearing stumped when asked why they aren't working to fix it. Watch.
And my view is that the Affordable Care Act has problems. Deductibles are too high. Co-payments are too high.
For years now, we have said we need to make improvements to the Affordable Care Act, to Obamacare.
There are problems with ACA.
There seems to have been this resistance for Democrats to get more involved.
Why aren't you working to fix this rather than just saying no?
Pretty good. The RNC accusing Democrats of playing political games while not having a plan of their own to fix Obamacare. Hillary Clinton is firing back, tweeting out a link of her plan from the 2016 campaign, saying, quote, it includes radical provisions like how to not kick 23 million people off their coverage. She then says, quote, feel free to run with it. Meantime, former Republican Congressman Jason Chaffetz blasting the GOP, accusing them of not living up to their promises made to voters. Watch.
Republicans, their deal with America was, if you give us the House of Representatives, we can play defense. If you give us the Senate, we can play a little bit offense. You give us the House, the Senate, and the presidency, then we can actually get things done. And so here we are 7 months into it, and they haven't passed the bill yet.
Dean, do you think that Congressman Chaffetz's criticism is valid?
Absolutely. I mean, there's a lot, but first of all, I got to go back to the ad, the first ad where the guys were talking and the music was playing. The music made that ad brilliant. I mean, as a regular person sitting out there, not getting into the weeds of all this healthcare stuff, it's difficult to do. It's so complicated. I mean, if you look at the Obamacare bill itself, is how many pages and how huge that it's so complicated. You know, it's hard to say. We need something done. I would like everybody. You know, this is my little fantasy is that both sides will work together and do something for the American people. That would be just a wonderful, wonderful thing. But they're going to play games, and it's going to be tough until they're forced to make something happen.
But I have a fantasy too, and that is that the Republicans get together and do something because they have the ability to get it done. And Chaffetz is absolutely right. I mean, shame on them. First of all, it's taken so long for them to figure out what they want or to come together on some kind of common ground, and it's almost embarrassing. It's like saying, you know, we've got the House, we've got the Senate, we got the White House, and we promised you this, but, you know, we can't get along.
Yeah. It's because everybody wants something different for their district. I mean, it's like typical politics, what you see out there. But for Democrats, they do have a plan, contrary to that ad. I mean, when you press them on it, they want more money to, quote, stabilize the system. And what that means is they want to pour more of your money, your taxpayer dollars, into this failing system and give it directly to the insurance companies in order to prop the whole thing up. I don't think that's what Americans want. And ideally, they would like to transfer your tax dollars directly to insurance companies in order to pay them to keep this whole thing afloat. And if you think about it that way and you say it that way, and anytime I have a Democrat on my show and I press them on that, they're happy to say it. I mean, they're only too happy to say more money from taxpayers to state from the government, they say. But you guys out there know who the government is.
But they are really good at fear-mongering, which is why there's been such an explosion of town hall riots and anger about this bill, because there doesn't seem to be a lot of faith, Trish, that this is going to be repealed and replaced with something that will actually be effective.
Well, look, they want socialized medicine, to Melissa's point. But I do fault the Republicans on this one because they had plenty of time. They had more than 7 years. And you know what? Any politician worth their salt would have known that this would be a problem. You can't just repeal the whole thing. You've already given someone a sense of entitlement, right? You got to come up with replace. And Donald Trump campaigned saying, I'm going to get you something that's much better than the Obamacare plan you have right now. So he has to deliver on that. The Republicans have to deliver on it. And shame on them for not coming up with something. They got a lot of brain power there. Use it. Come up with something that would be better. Instead, we're in the situation we're in. And frankly, it's not good because it's threatening everything else, including something very important, tax reform.
Dean, only 2 senators have to deflect in order for Obamacare not to be repealed and replaced. 2, I keep asking what is going to happen if you end up getting, you know, the Freedom Caucus people that can't get on board with the more moderates in the party. I don't have a lot of faith. You know, I'm a gambler. I wouldn't bet that this one's going to go through.
You're the gambling again. Well, I'm going to just hope and pray that it does. I'm looking for a lucky number 7 or 11. I'll gamble too. I want it to happen. I want this to happen, and it would be a crime if it didn't. So I'm hoping that the president and some other folks can put some pressure on those two and
But, you know, there's a fundamental issue here, and that is, are people who are elected to represent us, especially in Congress, are they elected to just satisfy the people in their district, or do they have an obligation to a bigger electorate, which is the United States, or to the Republican Party, or to the president? And if they stick with, look, I'm not getting elected again, you know, if I don't stick, you know, my fork in the ground or stake in the ground, then it's never going to happen.
Yeah, and there are a lot of people, especially more libertarian-leading candidates and people in office who would rather have nothing than have something that's not perfect.
What a shame. All right, meantime, Democrats reportedly realizing that just fighting President Trump hasn't been a winning strategy so far. This is according to Politico. Democrats are looking to rebrand with a new message called, quote, a better deal, which rolls out their economic agenda. But some moderate Democrats, wary of the party's liberal platform, tell Politico they're crafting their own pitch to voters ahead of next year's midterms. Senator John Tester saying, quote, we ought to have a message already. I'm not sure we have a cohesive message, but we've certainly got one for Montana. In the meantime, Democrats seem to be facing a leadership vacuum. Listen to how Virginia Governor Terry McAuliffe responded yesterday when he was asked who's in charge.
Who is the leader of the Democratic Party right now?
I think there are many leaders of the Democratic Party. I will always default.
Give me a name, Governor. Give me a name.
I'm not going to give you. I'll say the governors who are leading their states, creating jobs, building infrastructure, building an education system that works.
I can't get an answer from anyone about it. I can't get one name from anybody about who's leading the Democratic Party right now. What does that say?
And I don't think, Kate, there is one person today.
I don't know, Megan, is that fair? I mean, we're right. It is uncomfortable, but here we are right after an election. I mean, every party goes through this when you take a routing.
I will say that we shouldn't get too cozy or get too comfortable right now because no one could have predicted President Trump. No one could have predicted hope and change with Obama. Politics is very cyclical, and voters tend to be very reactionary with who's in office right now. That being said, the past 5 special elections, Democrats have been able to blow completely out of the water and embarrass themselves, no matter how much money they get coming in. The problem is when you have people like Tim Ryan from Ohio who are more moderate blue dog Democrats who are trying to show new leadership in the party. They're completely stifled out by Nancy Pelosi, by the more progressive, totally extreme factions of the party. I hope they go full-blown socialist. That way we can just win every election from here on out.
Yeah.
And hopefully get things passed if the Republicans can agree.
Yeah. I mean, Judge, when you look at their challenge right now, they have, you know, the party leadership is this super wealthy liberal elite. They're funded by super wealthy people in Hollywood, in New York, out in California, in Hollywood, all over the place. They've completely lost touch with what used to be their stronghold, working people who have all gone over. I mean, the parties have flipped and they've now all gone over to being Republicans, it seems. Do the Democrats even realize that? Because if you look on social media, they have no idea that they've lost every working person in America.
I think that the Democrats are so caught up on this socialist, progressive kind of agenda that they just assume that everyone's with them. And what you say is so true, Melissa, and that is that you're talking about the elite in California, both the education, the academic elite, financial elite, and yet they are trying to convince America that they speak for them. America gets it. It's the flyover states. They get it. They know that Donald Trump, as wealthy as he is, understands them more than the
Again,
elites
a little
do.
warning. I've been doing this a long time.
Yes.
In the same way that Democrats have flipped, Republicans have as well. All of a sudden, we seem to be losing white college-educated voters, which used to be a cornerstone of the Republican electorate. So just as fast, again, I just want to say,
but where
we should
are they
be very
going?
careful.
They're going to the socialist side?
No, I don't believe so, but I do think, especially when it comes to millennials and young women coming up in politics, the statistics are not on our side right now, and we need to be wary going forward that if we make promises we can't keep, we are handing Democrats attack ads in the midterms.
And perhaps a lot of those women and some of the younger people are not feeling as engaged. But, you know, you look at Nancy Pelosi or Hillary Clinton, and they're effectively sort of let them eat cake. It's that kind of elitism where they don't feel or understand the problems of everyday Americans. I think about, you know, my father's family, big Irish Catholic family. You were a Democrat, like you were Catholic, like you were Irish, and like you were a union member. Well, guess what? It's folks like these that they're losing. They are losing the sort of core, Democratic voter because they are not perceived as caring about the working class anymore. It really is. Let them eat cake, and that's not going to fly.
And I think
we have Dean on the couch who lives in California.
Oh, no.
I know. What is it? Dean, tell us
I was
about
hoping to deflect that one. Well, isn't Barack Obama the leader of the Democratic Party? Because every single time our president goes out somewhere, I see him right behind him, undercutting him in a way that I'm shocked. I've never seen that before from a post-president. And I find that very disturbing. And Hillary Clinton, tweeting out her little smug things. I don't like that. Doesn't come off very well. But in California, it's a tough place for me to be running around out there. I'm out there battling all the time. Here's the thing: I always try to have a conversation with people out there, and it turns heated really fast.
That doesn't work. I lived in LA for 2 years. That does not work. They are terribly rude.
I'm still going to try. I'm going to still try.
I was surprised. I was out in LA last week, and I was surprised at the number of people who came up to me very quietly.
Yes.
And were like, I watch Fox News. I understand what you say.
But don't tell anyone.
But they were whispering. I mean, they were like, you can't be a non-liberal out here.
Yeah.
But they really, they knew enough. I was just walking along the street, and they knew enough to come over. So you're watching California.
He's going to need that cape out.
No, I get this all the time. I get this, hey, Dean, Superman, nice to meet you. Hey, I like your political views.
There you go. All right.
All the time.
New developments in the probe into Russian hacking and possible collusion with the Trump campaign. Why Robert Mueller's latest hire is raising serious questions of bias.
New questions for special counsel Robert Mueller's legal team probing Russian meddling following recent revelations that several of his hires have contributed heavily to Democrats. The newest addition, a top public corruption prosecutor who recently worked for Preet Bharara, the former U.S. attorney who has emerged as a prominent Trump critic ever since his firing. Watch this.
From where I stand here, it looks to be about 1 to 1.5 million people. How many people remember the dramatic moment on The Apprentice every week when Donald Trump sat at the conference room table, manned up, looked the contestant directly in the eye, and said in that voice, "Would you kindly submit your letter of resignation?" You don't drain a swamp with a slogan. You don't drain it by replacing one set of partisans with another. You don't replace muck with muck.
He would know.
And it's not just zingers. And it's not just put-downs. Bharara recently saying there is enough evidence to start an obstruction case against the president. Watch him here.
I think there's absolutely evidence to begin a case. I think it's very important for all sorts of armchair speculators in the law to be clear that no one knows right now whether there is a provable case of obstruction. It's also true, I think, based on what I see as a third party and out of government, that there's no basis to say there's no obstruction.
I'm going to the judge for
I was looking here.
If I say, as a judge, if I said to a defense attorney, "How do I know your client didn't commit murder?" How do I know to the prosecutor that he did? Look, here's the bottom line: Preet Bharara is a disgruntled ex-employee. Preet Bharara is someone who has put his top lieutenant into Mueller counsel team. Mueller is like this with Jim Comey. Mueller, as special counsel, has an obligation to assess the credibility of Jim Comey versus the President of the United States. Right then and there is a conflict. There is a fundamental conflict. And Mueller and Comey have taken the national stage many times in the past, including with John Ashcroft in that hospital room many years ago during the Bush administration. Now, Mueller is packing his team, looking to indict anyone he can with anti-Trump people, specifically people who have not only supported Hillary Clinton, but have given Hillary Clinton money. And now we've got this Preet Bharara person who is in there with an agenda. This is a problem. We cannot have, and for Preet Bharara to say, I mean, come on, Preet, for him to say that we are substituting one group of partisans for another. Look, Democratic presidents have fired U.S. attorneys when they come in and there are Republicans in, and vice versa. This is nothing new. He's got sour grapes, and they are gunning for Donald Trump.
So what should our president do?
Here's the thing. If we have a Saturday night massacre, there's going to be a problem. All right. But I cannot imagine that any executive or anyone who's a target of an investigation, of people looking and going out and saying there's absolute evidence to start an investigation, that's hogwash. We've been doing this for 9 months now. Nobody's come up with anything, including Jim Comey under oath. So if they start going the grand jury route, because make no mistake, Mueller has access to a grand jury as special counsel, then the president has a big decision to make.
But, Judge, if they're stacking the deck in their own favor using people who have given large amounts of money to the Clintons and the Democrats, how is that legal?
It is legal because it's then up. So if I'm a judge, right, and the defense attorney comes in and he says to me, the prosecutor is doing X, Y, and Z, I have the ability to say, you know what, you're off the case, or I'm going to recuse myself. There is no judge who is overseeing this. It is Donald Trump who has the power to end it. And I'm sure that this is a very delicate balance for him. He doesn't want the Saturday night massacre, but he is the only one who can change it, since now they've got Mueller in the middle of this.
Wow. He's in a tough spot.
He's in a very tough spot.
All right, President Trump weighing in on allegations CNN blackmailed a Reddit user who created a video showing the president body slamming a mocked-up CNN character. What Mr. Trump had to say, and whether the network may have broken the law, we will discuss.
All right, President Trump weighing in on allegations that CNN blackmailed a Reddit user who created a video of the president body slamming a mocked-up CNN character. The controversy began after the network suggested it would release the man's identity if he engaged in offensive online behavior again. Here's the president.
What CNN did was unfortunate for them. As you know now, they have some pretty serious problems. They have been fake news for a long time. I think they've hurt themselves very badly, very, very badly. And what we want to see in the United States is honest, beautiful, free, but honest press. We want to see fair press.
Many others took to Twitter to blast CNN over the allegations, including Donald Trump Jr. He writes, quote, if only CNN spent as much time tracking down info on the IRS, targeting Fast and Furious, Iran deal, etc., as they did a meme writer, hashtag CNN blackmail, which, by the way, was trending #1 all over Twitter, CNN blackmail. Meanwhile, Republican Senator Ted Cruz reaching to the controversy by suggesting the network may have broken the law, posting, quote, troubling, I assume CNN's lawyers are examining the Georgia law on theft by extortion. So to break this down a little more, Dean, CNN tracked down allegedly the person, which this may not even be it, someone from Reddit who made the meme of Donald Trump fake attacking CNN in the wrestling meme that he ended up tweeting. And then they tracked them down and basically demanded an apology from them and said, I'm going to release your information on the internet. And what do you have to say for yourself?
Yeah, they're going to dox them and put all their information out there. And that's a horrible, horrible thing to do. Listen, that last little bit at the end of their, and we won't release the name if the person continues to comply, etc. That's the part that's really damning and awful. It looks terrible. And what CNN has basically done is guarantee that there will be Trump whipping CNN booty all over the place in memes for the next 10 years.
But you know what? This is not just unethical. This could be illegal. It's called blackmail or extortion. And that's why Senator Cruz tweeted out the statute in Georgia, which doesn't allow for that kind of threat. In other words, CNN is very cognizant of the fact that if they release this guy's name, he will be subject to all kinds of hate, possibly physical injury, his family, his job. There are tremendous consequences. You've got in New York coercion in the second degree, where if someone has a right to do something and you say, if you do that, like free speech, if you do that, then we are going to expose you to hatred or possible personal injury. And you've also got a federal statute. So now they have to look very seriously by saying to this guy who did the meme, look, if you've got to promise that you won't do anything like this again, and if you don't, we're not going to leak this out at your name or who you are. That's extortion. That's blackmail. This is not near the line, it's on the line. So now you're going to see CNN say, oh, no, he offered to say that himself. We would never expose him to further danger. And if this guy gets in trouble, he's got a personal injury lawsuit as sure as the way I look at if they release his name. Or they can release it very quietly and not make it attributable to them.
It's a leak for sure.
I agree.
One of the things I think is so interesting about this whole tweeting conversation is you kind of have to look back, I think, at the President Trump's tweets from a different level. I mean, everybody who's really good on social media right now has a very specific audience, and they have a very specific message, and they feed the people that are on their feed daily with the same sort of stuff. You look at everybody who's great, Sean Hannity, Eric Bowling from here, even people like Ellen DeGeneres, who's always feeding her fans rainbows and unicorns, and President Trump is keeping his base engaged through his whole presidency through these tweets. But it's the people that hate him who want to take it all very literally. And you also wonder that while he is keeping his base engaged, is it interfering with the policy? But they don't understand the whole marketing through social media thing where it's very targeted.
But even beyond that, Trish, you're talking about somebody who's sitting at home on their computer making a joke. I didn't find that tweet offensive at all. It was joke wrestling. Now possibly being exploited by a national news network. It's very serious.
That's kind of messed up. No, I mean, I think the judge is right on this one. They're on the line. They may have crossed that line. And there may be some repercussions here. In other words, why not just put the guy's name out, right? If you're a news organization and you want to report on this and he's part of the story, why did he make this meme, et cetera, then he's part of the story and you can justify putting his name out. But to threaten him in any way that we might put your name out if you don't, do what we ask.
Or if you continue to express your First Amendment rights, then, then we're coming after you. We're going to dox you.
Well, it looks like CNN may be faced with a lawsuit soon. We're outnumbered in just a moment. We'll be right back.